All right, the time is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 19th. I'll call to order the meeting of the Bridgewater Town Council. This meeting is being aired live and recorded for future broadcast. Please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, the council has not been made aware of the passing of any military veterans, but I would ask that you please join us for a moment of silence to honor all those veterans who have passed. Thank you. All right, the first item of business we have tonight is the approval of meeting minutes from September 15th. We can do a voice vote on this one.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes pass. Announcements from the president. We have none this evening. Proclamations. We have none. Moving on to D, Citizens Open Forum. If anyone from the public would like to approach the podium to speak, we'd ask that you just state your name and please keep your remarks to 3 minutes.
Keep my remarks to under 3 minutes.
Under 3 minutes.
Ray Jamian, 221 Alders Road. I'm here representing the Bridgewater Communities for Civil Rights, and I'm here to invite you to a forum that we're putting on 2 weeks from tomorrow, October 4th. It's at the library. It starts at 6 o'clock, 7:45, and it's on a topic that is current in the news, book banning. The forum will be a panel discussion and then public input after that. The panel is going to be made up of our own librarian, Jed Phillips, Christine Richards is the coordinator from the BR, Teacher and Learning at BR, Pamela Hayes Bohannon, who's a senior librarian at BSU, and Laura Rotolo from the ACLU in Boston, who give the national overview. And it's going to be moderated by Carol Copeland Thomas, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Curry College. We think it's going to be a good forum, and it's on a topic that is obviously in the news today. And so we invite all of you, if you can come, we'd like you to come. It's in person. There will be able to go on, you'll be able to click on a link to get onto it, but we prefer in person, and then be open for questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll now close Citizen Open Forum and move on to agenda item E, appointments. We have none this evening. Moving on to agenda item F, hearings. We have none. Agenda item G, license transactions. We don't have any this evening. And moving on to agenda item H, presentation. We have one, the financial orientation presentation given by Kimberly Williams and Lori Garini. We invite you to approach the podium. Is the microphone on?
Deb, could you let me, thanks.
And can we just check to make sure that the podium microphone is on?
Testing, 1, 2.
I think
I don't
it
see it.
is on. I don't think it's lit, but there.
That seems better.
Testing, better.
Yep, thank you.
So
A nice light read.
So I'll, if I could, Mr. President, I'll just sort of introduce, we have a relatively light agenda this evening, and we figured this would be a good time to give the council a little bit of an update on municipal finance. So it's the most exciting thing that you can do on a Tuesday night, but we'll make it fun. But I think this came about when we made an effort to try to schedule orientation for some new counselors as it relates to finance, and we were having a really hard time trying to get everybody in the same room at the same time. So We chatted about it internally and decided that it made a lot more sense just to bring it to the council as a whole, because many of the counselors are new, and some of the more seasoned town councilors probably want a little bit of a refresher too. So hence, we are here today. I think I don't need to introduce Lori to anybody. Lori Greeny's acting finance director. She's been with the town for a number of years.
Mhm.
I won't say how many because I don't know. And has really been the glue that's held a lot of our finance departments together, certainly over my tenure. So she knows the town from a financial perspective inside and out. She probably knows everybody else's job inside and out too. So I'm certainly happy to have Lori in this role. It's very exciting for us. So with that, I'll let Lori sort of kick it off. If you have questions, probably best, unless it's incredibly urgent, probably best to hold those till the end, and then we'll have a good give and take after that. So, so
All right.
off
Thank
you
you,
go.
Michael. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and fellow counselors. I'm really excited to be here because I love what I do, municipal finance. It's something that I enjoy. I enjoy working for the town. I've worked for the town about 20 years now. So I've been in many departments. So I've seen it come up and down, and it's great to see it where it is today. So that being said, we're just going to do kind of an overview of some of the things that the finance departments do. So what do we do? So the finance department is made up of 3 branches: the accounting department, the assessing department, and the revenue collection and treasury. And they are an integral part of the town of Bridgewater's daily operations and long-term projects. The departments serves as the foundation for various town services. So our core responsibilities, and there's many responsibilities, and trying to limit them was difficult, but we're, doing our best here. So provide quality management of the town's financial resources and its enterprise resource planning activities, ensure fiscal responsibility, and support the decision-making. We also provide financial services to all internal and external stakeholders with exceptional customer service. I like to think that our departments go out, they go the extra mile when residents or calls, and there's many in a day. And you guys are lucky to have such the great team members that you do in this town. So I just wanted to mention that. So we also oversee and implement internal controls, executing the financial policies accepted by the town. So again, what Michael said, this is geared to newer officials. And I know, looking at Sean, I've seen him in the finance budget and subcommittee years. So this is probably like a little review for you, but
Okay.
yeah, so we thought it would be great to introduce some of this stuff to the new councilors, as well as bring it to the attention of the community itself. So the next slide is budgeting, high-level sources and uses. So what are sources and uses? So the sources in basic form is our revenues. So we put together what our revenues can be so that we can put them to use or use them for expenditures of the town. So some of the revenues are grants, property taxes, and utility fees. And like I just said, they're used for operational expenses, for capital projects, and mostly debt service. So we'll continue with sticking with the budget process. So the budget process begins with financial policies, begins with capital improvement plans. We have long-range financial forecasts, and that help determine what we get an annual budget document. So we're going to probably just focus on the general fund and the enterprise funds for this presentation, but just so you know, there are many types of funds in municipalities. There are trust funds, stabilization funds, revolving funds, annual revenue funds such as CPA, General fund is typically all unrestricted revenues that don't by statute belong in any other segregated fund. So the general fund is the main fund. It accounts for sources and uses of resources that are discretionary to the town council in the provision of its activities, its programs and services deemed necessary and desirable by the community. So we also have a few enterprise funds. And the enterprise funds they're separate financial reporting for the town services, and they're usually a user fee that self-supports the fund itself, and it pays for its own expenses. So for example, the water fund, it's based on the water rates, the water revenue, and all of the revenues are used to support and pay for all the expenditures of that particular fund. So next. So this is what we annually vote and report on, the general fund and the 3 enterprise funds. So I put a little notate of what the council voted in May as far as the FY24 budget is, the general fund, transfer station, the sewer fund, and the water fund. So those are what you voted back last May. So next. So sources for funding the budget again is based on property taxes, state shared receipts, local receipts, including motor vehicle excise and other excises, anticipated grants and loans, fees for services, like your licenses and permits and departmental fees, sales tax revenue. This town has meals tax and room and hotel tax. And then we have ambulance and conservations, and the RRA stands for Receipts Reserved for Appropriation, which means that those funds are segregated to receive revenue, and you can only appropriate out of those funds. So in your annual budget, you'll probably see, a certain amount that's calculated from ambulance receipts reserve fund and a certain amount from the conservation receipts reserve fund that we collect annually that supports the services of those departments. And there are other special revenue funds that do fund into the general fund. For example, Title V, we collect that based on the individual collections that are added to people's taxes. And that pays for the debt service that we might have obtained to help with the loans for that. So we monitor these funds, all through the year. For example, the ambulance receipts fund is an important revenue for the town. So we meet regularly, monthly with our ambulance billing company. It's New England Medical Billing, excuse me. And so we meet with them regularly. They know the trends. They, do a great job for the town. They go over the billing and their receipts with us, and we usually can recognize if, what's happening in the Commonwealth and things of that nature. So we keep on target with that, usually on a monthly basis, because it's one of the important revenues of the town. And I think Michael can probably speak to any other special revenues that we have.
So I won't speak to others that aren't listed here, but I do want to point out, and I think it's important for certainly newer counselors and for residents in Bridgewater to understand what the diff is. So it says under other special revenues, it says diff for debt service. So when we did Elm Street, we used really something that is rarely used in Massachusetts, a financial mechanism that's rarely used in Massachusetts. And that is the diff. It's district infrastructure financing. That's what it stands for. And district infrastructure financing says, okay, we're going to carve out a neighborhood essentially. And in this case, it was industrial property, excuse me, off of Elm Street. And after this date, any improvements made on those properties will specifically go towards funding repairs and rebuilding of Elm Street itself. So that was about an $8 million project at the time. We offset it with the $3 million MassWorks grant, and the remaining $5 million is being funded through a bond issuance, but the bond is being more than repaid right now through that diff fund. So we segregate tax payments when they come in. All those increase in taxes that occurred after that date, the diff date, go into the diff fund and then are used to pay off the bond payment for the 5 million that we had to borrow in order to get that project done. So that was just a little piece of information, and I think that worked out very well for us. And now we know how to do it. If an opportunity comes up that's appropriate, we may do something like that again. So it's worth it for you to know what that mechanism is. It's not, I hesitate to call it a mechanism because it sounds like it's, some nefarious thing that we're doing. But it's something, as I say, that's not used a lot throughout Massachusetts. TIFs, tax incentive financing, is a much more popular mechanism for folks to encourage economic development. This is a way to finance capital projects or infrastructure projects that need to be done in order to develop properties. So that's really where Elm Street came from. So.
Thank you, Michael. And that's key to, we're always trying to think, how can we do things in a different way or in a better way or a more efficient way? So we're always looking at other communities and seeing how they make things work or they don't make use, but we're always looking for new things to try to save the taxpayer in the end. So that being said, so the uses, we covered the sources. So the uses, expenditures of the town, they include, these things: operational, capital, and debt service in the regular annual budget. Excuse me. I'm a little nervous, so not a public speaker very well, but anyway. All right, so the budgeting process itself. As you know, in the financial policies really kick off the budget process. So your budget resolution, that usually comes up sometime in the fall, maybe late November. When you start discussing that goes through committee, and then you end up voting that to give the town manager and his team, guidance at how we're going to fund the budget. It gives us your goals and what the community would like to see inside that budget on an annual basis. So it also usually consists of having reserves policies, meaning, a lot of the cities and towns call it free cash, but it's really for our reserves. So that being said, we try to simplify the process so that it's easily understood. And again, the policies started off our goals, and then we set timelines. So, it makes up, we have to find out what we need for salaries, expenses, debt service, and the assessments, including education. So, we try to gather all that information as we're working through the process, and we collaboratively work with all the departments and the department leaders. We meet with them on a regular basis starting in the fall. And we also have a collaborative approach with the budget and finance subcommittee. I always get that one, and the finance committee. So we like to work very collaboratively with them and answer their questions as we go along and try to get the best information that we can to everyone. So next. So one of the big portions of finance, as we saw in the beginning, accounting does most of the budgeting and the day-to-day payment of bills and paying a payroll, interact with the departments. So our accounting department is great. We're a little short right now, but we're working through it. We have a great team there, and they're great. So the assessing department works all year round on calculating and setting the tax rate. And it's a very complicated process. It doesn't seem like it should be, but based on all the Mass General laws and how everything's assessed and valued, it really is complicated. And we have a wonderful chief assessor that works for the town with 20 years experience. She is often called by a lot of other communities because she's been around a long time. She's very well educated, and She does a fantastic job for the town. So this is like easy for her, but it's an all year process that her and her staff work on to get this ready. So, but what is the tax rate? So a excuse me, a municipality's entire budget plan for the fiscal year is laid out on the recap sheet. We call this process the tax recapitulation process. So until the tax rate is set, the community cannot send out an actual property tax bill, meaning we send out preliminary bills, you all know, at the beginning of the fiscal year, and that's usually based on the previous year until we gather all the information and data so that we can get the actual tax billing ready with the new values and the new assessment. So the property tax rate is an important factor in the budget too, because it is the single largest source of revenue that the town can use to pay for its expenses. The state does limit on local taxation, restricts the ability of the town to fulfill the growing public demand for services. So as you know, we're restricted by Proposition 2.5, but we all know inflation and expenses usually are way above that. So setting the tax rate timely also is key to the success of our finance operations. Cash flow is imperative to reduce any additional costs of borrowing or any lost investment income or delay regular financial activities if we don't get the bills out on time, because we're like very regimented at how that works. So, and many of you may or may not know, but there's 3 basic factors that affect the tax rate determination. So it's the property tax levy. So the revenue a community can raise through real and personal property taxes. Each year, the amount to be raised must be determined in accordance with Proposition 2.5, which I just briefly mentioned. So the total assessed value of the community and amount needs to be raised by taxation. Well, the amount needed to be raised by taxation, excuse me. So the tax rate formula, as complicated as it is to process, it's really the total tax levy divided by the total assessed property value and then times 1,000 equals the tax rate. So that's very confusing for most people, but it's a process. So, okay, and we also have the revenue and treasury, the revenue collection and treasury department, who are the collector of taxes. So we also have a great staff. The town has 5 employees down there. They have, most of them are pretty well experienced. They handle themselves wonderfully. They do a great job for the town. They're efficient and, you know, they deserve all the credit for collecting all the money that the town, that comes into the town. So how do we collect property and excise tax and utility fees? So we have billing and collection schedules established, and they're followed to ensure timeliness and all of that. So again, ensuring timely collection for proper fund management. The payments are collected online. We have in person, we have mailing. Some are mailed to the town hall, some are mailed to our lockbox. And then we also have a drop-off box outside. So we also want to ensure proper posting, payments are collected. Oh, I just said that, sorry. Sorry about that. So then reconciliation of cash and receivables are reviewed weekly and they're reconciled monthly. So collection efforts are completed in accordance with all the MGL statutes, and there are very many of them regarding overdue taxes and fees, demands, tax and utility liens, and tax title takings. It's a very, you know, another complicated process, but we have a team down there that, you know, in the last 7 years, we've streamlined, we've gotten the technology upgraded. We're collecting faster. We're really doing the best we can for the residents of Bridgewater, and I think they do a great job. So
Lori, I would only add one thing there.
Sure.
When it comes to collections, we very often get citizens that come into town hall and they complain, well, you know, I didn't get a bill, or, you know, it's a late payment and I'm only late by X number of days, you know, why are you charging me a penalty and interest? And that is specifically because by law, we're not allowed to waive a lot of the penalties and interest that accrue on tax bills that are late or accrue on other bills that are late. So everything we do is in accordance with Mass General Law. If we have some flexibility, absolutely, we listen to people and try to accommodate, their needs and sometimes they've had, really tricky situations and we try to accommodate that. But I think people don't understand that we don't have a lot of flexibility when it comes to sort of waiving late fees, waiving interest and so forth. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. So also we do financial reporting. So internally, we do regular reports so that everyone can make informed decision-making. So we have monthly budget and expenditure reports that are monitored by our department leaders and staff. And the accounting department does analysis of the budget to actuals monthly. Sometimes towards the end of the year, we're like diving into it like daily or weekly. We have regular meetings with the departments and their staff so that we can see where they're spending or where they might have had unexpected things come up that weren't in the original budget. So we try to work with them and see how we can handle those kinds of things. We also, when we're analyzing our budgets, sometimes you'll get a monthly budget report and it'll have one item that says 100% expended. So there are certain things in the budget that are like one-time payments, like the retirement payment, for example. We are offered or incentivized to take a 2% discount if we pay it in July. So it ends up being, it's a 4 million or such expense. So we end up saving the town $100,000 if, because we can do it. And so those kind of things on your reports, you might say, oh, why are we going to go over on that? Because we've already hit that. But there are certain things. So we do like to usually put it up in the corner to try to give you guys a little note to explain those kinds of things. But we're monitoring everything pretty closely. And we feel that, if there's something more you would like to see or whatever, where we can certainly do that, but we think we try to do a simple job so that it doesn't get too complicated. And we also monitor our cash flow closely because we often have ongoing projects going on that we may get reimbursements and things like that. So we're always looking at our cash flow. So our external financial reporting is for the transparency of the stakeholders. We have compliance that we have to adhere to, and we do that usually monthly, quarterly, mid-year. So we have to report into Gateway on the Department of Revenue's website. So we are always adhering to all the guidelines and the deadlines that they push out for us. So that's good. So Capital Improvement Program, acronym CIP. So CIP's purpose is capital appropriation is where major purchases and projects are planned and budgeted. So commonly, CIP plans cover 5-year periods, and they relate directly to the government's strategic plan. So a common guideline is that any program or purchase of a non-expendable piece of equipment valued at over $10,000 is listed as a capital outlay, like your plow trucks, your vehicles, anything of a major infrastructure repair. We consolidate that into the capital improvement plan. Some of the examples of ongoing and planned capital projects are the upcoming fire station, the High Street Dam, road improvements we hope to push forward with in the spring, High Street Water Treatment Plant, which is 90% complete or 95%, that's almost over. And then we also have the Morris Ave Wastewater Treatment Plant Phase 1. So that's still ongoing. So again, they're all pretty big projects. The High Street Dam, for example, is an $8 million project that through grants through the federal and state government. And there were some local contributors for that project to kick off. Is all funded by grants. You know, it doesn't cost the taxpayer in Bridgewater any extra in their in any of their bills from the town, whether it's property tax or user fee. So that's strictly grant, but it is also included in the town's CIP program because we like to capture everything that's going on in town, and you can see a full picture of each project, whether, you know, CPA is paying for something, or, you know, we have grant money, or we're taking a loan out for whatever. So we like to incorporate everything in our CIP plan, and that always is a rolling plan. So we you know, changes, that priorities change. So we try to keep it as updated as we can. So that is capital improvement. So forecasting and trend analysis. So importance of predicting future financial trends. We know it's extremely important. So we have data-driven decision-making, you know, based on our forecasting and our trend analysis. So resource allocation. Municipalities have limited resources. So predicting financial trends help them allocate these resources efficiently. So we need to know basically all the time where we're going to be. Budget planning. Accurate financial predictions are essential for creating and managing budgets. And then long-term planning. Municipalities often engage in long-term projects and initiatives that require significant financial investment. So we're, as you know, we're always trying to see how we're going to do that. So when we're doing forecasting and analysis, we use historical data for informed planning so that we can anticipate our challenges and our opportunities. And economic trends is also key. I mentioned the DLS, the Division of Local Services, which you'll see in an upcoming slide. They offer DSL alerts and bulletins and updates. They're always on the on top of what's going on at the State House, what's going on in the economy, what's going on. So we have some great partners in the state that try to keep the cities and towns informed of what's upcoming, what's not upcoming, and what we can look forward to. But we also work with our departments closely. For example, building and permitting, our inspectional services department. You know, our assessors work very closely with them, monitoring the number of permits for new buildings, for additions, for new developments. So they work closely in tracking those metrics so that it helps us to use that information for forecasting and seeing what we're currently doing and what we think we might do. And so we're always looking ahead and in front of us. So we do a lot of analyzing, and we try to stay on top of things for that. So I don't know if you have anything to add for that, Michael.
I would only add, I think one of the examples that we've used quite frequently over the last number of years is motor vehicle excise. So we probably are one of the few communities that really tracks, you know, who's buying new cars, who's leasing new cars. How is that? Because that has a direct effect on our motor vehicle excise, which is not an insignificant part of our revenue stream. So we really try to look at that as a trend. That can also give you a lot of insight into just general buying trends, which helps us in other areas, not necessarily the budget, but certainly motor vehicle excise is sort of an excellent canary in the coal mine for what's happening out in the economy. So that was it.
Thank you. So I mentioned earlier the Division of Local Services. It's the DLS. So let me just read. The Municipal Finance Training and Resource Center on this website provides a wide array of interactive and on-demand materials that would assist new local officials and residents, as well as municipal data bank and analytics of data that's submitted to the DLS for Bridgewater, as well as the Bridgewater Rainham Regional School District, as well as all of the other communities in the Commonwealth. So I did put some key websites that if you have time, take a look at. The DLS does a wonderful job working with all the communities to try to keep its municipal professionals like me and the other staff updated and trained on what the new laws that will be up and coming. And also the DLS's charge is to work on accounting and assessing regulations, and they really streamline in that. So we were in communication with our local reps all the time, and as well as when we submit all the town's data as far as when we close the books and things like that. We do it on the gateway. We have a rep. Sometimes our rep, Martin, he likes to come to the building because he's like, I love Bridgewater. He loves the building. He thinks this is one of the best in the Commonwealth. And he's always calling and saying, Laurie, when can I come? Are you ready? So
That's right.
yeah, it is. It's great. He's great. But they are our partners and they are a resource. And like I said, they have wonderful webinars. I know it's not a fun thing to do on your off time, but I'm a geek financially, so I'm always like looking and seeing what I can learn and what's out there. And I'm always emailing Michael, and he's like, "Will you stop?" I'm like, "Look what's coming." So please, if you want to go and stop, I left the websites in your packet, so that's great. It's a great tool. And finally, here's one of the tools that that's on there. So they have all these analytics and reports from not just Bridgewater, from all the communities. And you can go in there and tap in. I want to compare Bridgewater to Middleborough. I want to compare Bridgewater to Rainham. I want to compare. You can download these reports, and it's amazing. We use them for analytics too, because it has all of our historical data on there. And it's great to see it in a visual chart sometimes instead of, the boring regular reporting. But so this is our undesignated fund balance, retained earnings availability, otherwise known as free cash. And free cash is not free, but everyone thinks it is. So the free cash starts out, again, going back to the budget resolution and our reserve policies. We're always projecting and estimating, because of our resolution, what we want to have at the end of the year for our reserves. So this year, we did have some closeouts that were unusual. So it was a little more than we anticipated. Bless you. But anyway, I'll let Michael talk to that. But the DLS, again, is a wonderful tool for information if you want to check those out.
So I just picking up on what Laurie's already sort of explained, but it's worth repeating. Free cash is essentially what we have in the bank after we get all this revenue in and we pay all our expenses. It's what's left over. The town went through a period of negative free cash, which means it overspent or under revenued for a stretch of years way back when. We're long removed from that, which is great. Our internal controls really make it such that we invariably have a good chunk of free cash at the end of the year. That free cash, by your policy, and you'll have a order probably next meeting, that free cash is allocated across a number of different funds. Our regular stabilization fund, which stands roughly 10 to 11% of our operating budget, as you heard from Tony Rosselli a month or two ago. It'll go to capital stabilization. It's one of the prime sources of funding for our capital, as well as the district's capital, or our share of the district's capital. It'll go into OPEB, the OPEB fund, which helps us begin to build a fund for other post-employment benefits that we have to pay out. And then the other one is our sick buyback account. We are getting into the meat of when employees will be retiring that could avail themselves under then current contracts of sick buyback. So their accrued sick time, we have to pay back at some percentage, varies over the different unions. So we've, instead of trying to make departments absorb that in their budgets, and they're already tight budgets, we said, no, we're going to separate, we're going to put in place a fund specifically to pay out the sick buyback. So it's not exactly predictable because people can retire at any point, at some point in their careers. But we have a pretty good handle on the outstanding, well, we have a very good handle on the outstanding sick time that's reimbursable. And so we have a sense of when people are retiring. We can always use age when it comes to public safety. But police and fire don't necessarily all retire at age 65 when they're required to. Sometimes they will retire early. But
Mhm.
so we, within reason, we have a good dialogue with the folks that we think might be retiring so that we can cover our obligation to them
Mhm.
through the sick buyback and not have to dip into the operating budget for various departments. But
Yeah, and
That was
just
all.
to add to that, the contractual obligations for those, their legacy now because the new contracts have written those out. So when we hire people, different contracts have different dates, but they all have that language now. So when new people come on, I don't know, after 2000 and I forget when we first started, there's no buyback for that any longer. So that's good. So the administration and finance department remain committed to the town's financial health and prosperity. So leaving that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, or Michael will help me. Or, and if anyone ever wants to sit down and dig into anything, I'm always willing. Like I said, I love my job and I love talking municipal finance, so I might scare you away after a while, but I'm always here, so.
Okay, so first off, thank you very much. We appreciate the time you took to put it together. A critical part of our understanding, and so the refresher is always helpful. So thank you. Do we have any questions? Yeah, Councilor Lindy?
Just want to echo the same thing. Very good comprehensive presentation. I'm a newer town official, but I've been through this in other aspects. And I can tell that you love your job. And I can also tell that I don't think we'd ever see any kind of tremendous overspending like are happening in other communities that nobody supposedly knew
No,
about. It
No,
just,
it won't
there's
leave
so many
our office.
controls here in place.
Yeah, we're on it. Yeah, that's,
Credit to
Crazy.
you and the
Mhm.
town manager and the employees.
thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I have something to say, but I don't want to trump any questions.
I do have one question. So a question I've had, so if I look at the way that our financials are organized, we essentially track them sort of by function, like our chart of accounts is, this function, that function.
Right.
Which is great from a control perspective because you know who owns the budget, you
Mhm.
know how much they spent, and you can
Right.
kind of keep them honest with that. One of the tricky things I think for us is we tend to think of money maybe in a slightly like pivoted way, where we're wondering how much money overall are we spending on downtown revitalization, or how much money overall are we spending on education,
Mhm,
where there might be individual expenses sort of scattered throughout the budget.
mhm.
And so I'm wondering, is there any way for us to, I don't know, tag expenses or somehow sort of pivot the view so that we could maybe look at different, categorize the spend in different ways to sort of
Mm.
help with strategic planning, really to make sure we're putting money into those things that are really important, and we're maybe not putting as much money into areas that
Mhm.
are sort of on pause while these other things move.
Yeah, so when you get your reporting right now, we basically do the general fund and the enterprise funds. So we are, and the CPA fund. So we know that's important. We get that out. We also, have reports for the capital projects going on. We have reports for the grant funds that are being expended. You guys would have so many reports. You'd be like, ah! But I understand your point of categorizing that, and that might be something we can look at to see how, you can better see, things of your interest for sure.
Thank you. I think that would be interesting because I think we tend to talk about things in strategic swim lanes
Mhm,
and finances are reported in functional swim lanes.
mhm,
And so if there's some way to kind of bridge that gap, that could be interesting.
That, so, obviously what you're talking about is pretty widely used in the business world.
mhm.
Not so widely used in the municipal world. We have had discussions over the past couple of years in trying to sort of shift that, both the budgeting process and a little bit on the reporting process, although that's not quite as easy, but certainly on the budgeting process, being able to budget functionally so that we can, allocate, time and effort and expense to, say, downtown revitalization and know what that's going to take as part of our budget. So that when we have incredible success and we're all done with that particular function, we can redirect the people's time and effort and expense in other directions, within that same budget. So that is something that's coming. That's probably not coming in this coming year, but we have been looking at it and we will continue to look at it because that's sort of the sign of a more mature finance organization, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. And I do know it's incredibly difficult to do. You mentioned your business world, that's multiple years to kind of pivot how they think about things. But if there's some way, even just kind of best guess for now, and then as we get more mature, maybe we tighten up the numbers, but yeah, could be helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you.
But we like to see that too.
Great.
Yeah.
Counselor Chase?
Actually, I think, Counselor, you have a question?
Oh, thank you. Actually, I just wanted to add a comment. It's actually related to the question and the comment you just said. And I echo the sentiment and apologies for being late, but thank you for the presentation. I
Welcome.
know,
Thank you.
having worked with you through FinCom, how dedicated you've been and helpful. I did want to echo this similar sentiment that this actually did come up in FinCom as well around, especially as we looked at capital orders, that there would be a very long list of everything from a senior center to,
Correct.
capital expense for the police department to the fire department to, a roofing, whatever. And it would be difficult if there was like one item that maybe was a little bit under question and you don't want to like blow up the whole
Right.
vote, for that sort of thing. So I basically echo your sentiment. So thank
Yeah,
you.
That's something we can certainly.
Counselor Chase? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do just have a question, Lori, if you can help me
Yes.
with it, but I think that just on the subject of expenditures,
Mhm.
I think citizens are always interested to learn, even as difficult as it is to kind of put it in terms like this, but sort of where the town stands with respect to other area towns.
Mhm.
And I think about it in terms of expenditures, and I think we've understood in recent years that comparatively,
Mhm.
that Bridgewater on a per capita basis actually expends a fairly low amount relative to
It does.
neighboring
yes.
communities.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, is that still, in your experience, accurate?
Well, the town certainly is working on some large projects now, and I know the roadway projects comes to mind. A lot of other cities and towns they have a lot of debt service. So that works into their, expenditure by community because they have these, large $1 million projects out there. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I do see what you're saying, that because Bridgewater hasn't borrowed largely up until the last wastewater treatment plant coming up and a couple of those, but the roadway is certainly that's gonna put us pretty similar to other communities as far as expenditure per capita, for sure.
Mhm. Okay.
Does that
Thank you.
answer your question?
That's fine. yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I do think if you break it down and look at the pure operational expense, we definitely are a much smaller, leaner operation than certainly
Getting
our
at
peer
large
groups.
capital Projects.
The capital projects aside, correct. And that's quite by design. I mean, we know that we've got a lot of pent up capital demand. Roads is a great example. Really very little attention has been paid to roads for, a generation or two. And that's now coming due. That bill is coming due, so to speak. So we know that we've got to maintain a very lean operation. in order to justify any request for capital funds from citizens or residents, property owners, to address some of the pent up capital demands. So it's quite by design. People don't have time to complain, so that's probably a good thing.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Actually,
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to make a comment. I didn't
Yeah,
want
sure. Councilor George, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I've had the honor of being on Budget and Finance. I think this will be my 4th year. And I can tell you that my first year as a counselor, getting into the budget was like drinking out of a fire hose. Not only did you have to understand the sources and uses, but you had to understand the reporting. So I've been in banking all my career. The reporting in the banking world is a lot different than it is in the municipal world, especially with red numbers. That really drove me crazy, that people had to talk me off the ledge, because the red numbers aren't necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, the revenues.
But I will say this, for every year that I've been on the council, every year that I've been on Budget and Finance, when we start the budget process, we do have some, I'll say, spirited debates, nothing unnecessary, nothing personal, things like that. As Mr. Dutton says, there are certain indicators that the finance department likes to use to project revenue, motor vehicles, state aid, things of that nature. I've always had kind of a little bit of a, say, craw on my side. If you look at the free cash, I'm all for generating free cash. I just think sometimes we go a little too far on the conservative side, because remember too, the free cash is allocated to reserves versus having monies coming in as revenue can go to operational expenses. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'd like to see in the future a budget where we can get into generating recurring revenue for reserves and things of that nature. Probably not in the near future, but I will say across the board, after we have the budget done, after we have it approved, the finance department, Mr. Dutton and his team do a very, very, very good job of keeping us up to date on our trends, where we're doing well, areas of concern. Luckily, knock on wood, the areas of concern that we've had, at least when I've been on the council, have been minimal, which is good. But at the end of the day, it's everyone's responsibility, the council, the general public, to really maybe not so much know the nuts and bolts, but as the earlier question was, where are we getting the money and how are we spending it? We have our auditors in here, and every year we've gotten a great audit, which not every city and town in Massachusetts can attest to. But there probably will be some areas of need to adjust the budget resolution, depending on what we're looking at for ongoing expenses, increases to departments, staffing, things of that nature. So just more of a general comment. And I just want to say, Laurie, thank you very much for presenting, and also all the work that you've done over the last 2 decades. We've come light years from where we were when I first moved into Bridgewater 26 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor George. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes agenda item H, presentation. We're going to move on to agenda item I, the town manager's report. The first item is the High Street Bridge closure update. I'll defer to the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happily, I have no reported problems to report, other than minor issues, typical of a construction project. Generally, everything is proceeding as planned. Our biggest challenge right now is getting all the state and federal reporting up to date and out the door. So that's a good problem to have. It is, as I reported, I think last meeting, it is now more certain that the road will continue to be closed until November, and that's mostly due to the delay in getting started. And obviously, it's been a lot rainier this year than it was last summer, so that's presented a little bit of more of a challenge to the contractor, but nothing horrible. So we are looking at a November date to get that road back open. And as we get closer, obviously the contractor will be able to give me much more specific timelines, but it does look like November, but otherwise going well. But I'm happy to answer questions about that if anybody has questions.
Do we have any questions? Yeah, Counselor George?
Present through you to the town manager. Early November, mid-November, or late November?
Right now, we're looking, or excuse me, early November, right now. I can't promise that by any means, but that's what we're looking
No,
at.
I understand that. I just wanted to have a little bit more clarity. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay, we can move on to item B, fire station update.
That project at this stage is also progressing well. The project team is anticipating coming to one of your meetings in October, I believe, the October 10th meeting. If not October 10th, it would be the 24th. They have reported, the project team has reported very good dialogue with Conservation Commission, Planning Office. They did do some final soil testing last week, which now means that the final site development plan can be done and merged into the overall construction plans. The good news is that obviously projects like this, for those that don't know, projects like this require subcontractor and contractor pre-qualification. We had over 100 submissions for pre-qualification for subcontractors and contractors. That is, it made the owner's project manager blew her off her seat. She could not believe that we had gotten that many submissions for pre-qualification. So that's great for us. We had about 10 general contractor requests for qualification. That is also great. And the fortunate news is all are known to the OPM and all are great contractors, general contractors. And so that's, you obviously want all your contractors to be top of the line, but we know that for those that submitted for pre-qualification, the 10 that we got have very good reputations, most of whom have already worked with the OPM team. So that's all great news. In terms of cost, we obviously have budgeted 21 million for this job. It may come in more than that. We won't know that until we get bids back in November sometime. In order to protect ourselves against, sort of escalating costs, we've added add-alts, which are basically options built right into the bid packet, so that we can say, okay, you know, the project calls for a metal roof, give us the cost of a metal roof, also give us the cost of asphalt roof. So if we have to move from metal to asphalt to reduce cost, then we can do it without having additional bidding going on. I can tell you that between the pre-qualification numbers and what we're seeing in the bidding world, obviously public bidding is all public, and we keep track of other projects in other cities and towns. It is softening a bit, and we're in a much better environment now than we were 6 or 8 months ago, or a year ago, for that matter. So we're crossing our fingers, and we're hopeful that we'll see bids in the neighborhood of what we've budgeted. But as I say, we won't really know until we get to November sometime. But I can say overall, we're quite pleased with the process. So answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yeah, Counselor George?
Thank you, Mr. President, through you to the town manager. So, Mr. Dutton, just to give people an idea, how many qualified bids did we get for the Mitchell School?
Oh, boy. I would have to look.
I believe it was 9.
It may have
I
been.
believe it was 9. So now we've gone from 9 to over 100.
So that covers, so the 100 covers subcontractors and contractors. And it's great because it means we've covered all of our bases essentially. And we know we'll get competitive bids on every single component of this job.
Right. So that's the hope, is now we have more to choose from. You know, the different environment back then, but I believe it was only 9 that we had that qualified. And now we've got 10 times that. So,
Yeah, sticks in my mind. It
Yep.
does stick in my mind.
okay, thank
Now that you
you.
mention it.
Do we have any other questions? Yeah, Councilor Murphy?
Through you to the town manager, do we have a separate committee set up for this through the town? And I guess my next question would be, are they meeting regularly? 'Cause
We have a small committee, but basically, the interested parties that work on a weekly basis with the OPM and the architect to design the actual building. We have a building committee that we put together a couple of years ago. They have not met in a while. They will be meeting before your next meeting, when we've asked the architect and the OPM to come and show you the plans. So they will be meeting within the next week and a half or so.
Any additional questions? Okay, let's move ahead to item C, water update.
Water update, wanted to give you an update on two different components of water, and I try to keep these two things separate because they are separate. One is water quality, and one is water supply. So on the water quality side, happy to report the High Street treatment plant has been up and running, is up and running. The number of calls complaining about discolored water have shrunk to almost nothing, which is great. The discolored water will come back as the crews, the distribution crews, continue to flush the water lines, which, in the fall may be somewhat intermittent, but we do post all the flushing schedules and updates on the town's website, as well as push those out on Facebook. So we try to let people know when flushing is going to be occurring in their neighborhoods, and we all put little sandwich boards in neighborhoods as well, so that those that aren't on technology at least have a little bit of warning. But honestly, the calls from on account of discolored water issues really have shrunk up. So I know that there were recent concerns circulating due to other towns around us sending out warnings about manganese. And I think I just wanted to sort of air those, acknowledge those concerns, but also let you know that Bridgewater had everything never mind. We have both high levels of manganese and iron in our water naturally. These are naturally occurring. As I've often said, the water that comes out of the ground today is the same water that came out of the ground 300 years ago in terms of iron and manganese. So both our treatment plants filter for iron and manganese, which is why the discoloration has really dissipated and complaints have gone away. Discoloration is caused by both iron and manganese being exposed to oxygen. So that's what the discoloration comes from. Happily, both get filtered out in our treatment plants. So I did want to let people know that. We do continue to test for PFAS. PFAS, obviously a nationwide issue, certainly not Bridgewater exclusively. It's a nationwide, worldwide issue. Our levels in recent testing have been within DEP limits. So we're pleased about that. In fact, I can tell you that we're working very closely with DEP on PFAS source testing. They came to us as a town that doesn't have seriously high levels of PFAS, and they wanted to use this town as sort of a place where they could start to sample to try to get an idea of where the source of PFAS is coming from, or if there is a single source, or if it's multiple sources. So we have worked very closely with them on that. We've certainly given them every opportunity to come and test our water bodies, test our test wells and so forth around town. And that is, as I say, an initiative that we hope can identify source contaminants. Right now, it looks like, and again, I'm putting a lot of analysis aside that needs to be done to let you know that it looks like a lot of our PFAS actually comes from rainwater, which is sort of reflected in the higher PFAS testing limits or test results in open bodies of water. So that's just a matter of interest. There's, again, nothing that should be taken to the bank on that, because that obviously requires DEP to do a lot more research and analysis of their test results, but that's what it looks like at this point. And I think a reminder, I know the council knows, but a reminder to residents, we test our water multiple times a day for a variety of different things. We test it weekly for other things, test it monthly for other things still. But all along those steps, all along those daily, weekly, monthly tests, we are guided by DEP and DEP's guidelines. And if their guidelines determine that we have exceeded thresholds, we report that. We follow DEP's, very specifically follow DEP's guidelines on how to report that. So there are some things that are minor that don't need reporting. There are some things that trigger an automatic mailing to the entire town. And we will do that when we're required to do that. So sometimes the language in the notifications to residents isn't exactly the language I would use, but again, it's all dictated by DEP, and it sounds just simply horrible. But I'm thinking of the PFAS specifically, but incremental, tiny little fractional test above the 20 parts per trillion, which is literally one drop of water in a Olympic-sized swimming pool. If you exceed that, then we have to do a mailing. We're required to do a mailing, regardless of the fact that we're a mixed water system. So everything is combined. So that the result from that one well at 20.1 over the 20% threshold will trigger a reporting, even though all of the water from all of the wells is mixed. But my point being that we follow DEP guidelines and thresholds very, very carefully. I do want to point out we have very highly educated and certified water plant and distribution operators. They do an exceptional job for us. And any water issues that we do have, misery loves company. Most cities and towns in Massachusetts are right there with us. But they do a lot of work every day, every hour of the day to make sure that whatever water they're pumping out of the system is going to be the best quality water that gets to faucets. So that's sort of the quality side of the house. So I'm happy to answer questions on the quality side before I get to the supply side.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you, President Moore. Thank you, Mr. Dutton, for the update on that. I know that you are very aware around the chatter around town around water quality. So I think so on one hand, what's helpful is you do provide the updates around what are the facts and what the efforts are, the guidelines, et cetera. I don't have the answer, but I think that there's an actual, there's a trust part that is challenging, right, for our community to feel confident that, because to your point, like it may be this little minuscule thing that doesn't really have any material health effect or impact or even environment, right? But the language can, throw people off. And so then over time, between the discolored water, these notices around, okay, we may have exceeded a threshold, it's just fundamentally led to distrust. Right? That no amount of facts or accurate information is going to dissuade people from feeling, I can't trust our water. So I'm just curious. And again, I don't have the answers. I definitely will think about it more and for sure offer any suggestions, particularly as we meet one-on-one. But is that something that you all have talked about in your team around, like, how do we regain the trust? Because
Every day.
It's like,
day.
are there ways that we can help as well? Because, certainly the other underlying sentiment as well is that if we can't address this water, this perception around water, how are we going to be able to, exponentially increase capacity for future development?
Right. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And it's a byproduct, I think, of some of that sort of almost threatening, scary language that gets sent out in DEP notices. And it's the same notice, the same language in every single town that exceeds the threshold. But I also think it's also a product of sort of the ratcheting down of limits on certain chemicals in the water. So when you see a report and it says you've exceeded the limit, well, 2 years ago, it probably didn't exceed the limit. It's the fact that DEP is sort of ratcheting down those limits. So I had this conversation today with somebody, it's very likely and almost a certainty that the water that you're drinking today is far safer than the water you were drinking here 30 years ago. But that's a hard thing to prove. I'm very close to it. So I see it. I see the work that goes into producing quality water. And we've tried to do, sort of videotapes and sort of Facebook Live sessions on here's how water gets treated, here's where it comes from, here's where it goes, and so forth. But I think we're, and I would leave you with this. I will take you up on your offer to think about how to get beyond that trust issue. But I can tell you that we are as transparent as can possibly be. If you call the water department, they are more than happy to share water quality reports. There's nothing to hide. And it's, sort of along the lines of municipal finance. There's nothing to hide. It's a wide open book. Anybody that has a question about their, about their water quality or about where the water comes from, anything to do with water, can certainly call the water department. And they've got some great folks over there that will they're patient. They'll walk you through the whole process and how the system works, what our challenges are. Everybody has challenges. We're not alone in that by any means. So they'll tell you what our challenges are, and they'll tell you what we're doing to try to address the issues, either quality issues or supply side issues in town. So it's I think a matter of getting the message out. And municipal governments are generally awful at getting the message out. We don't have a local newspaper effectively anymore. So that's not a source for accurate information for folks. So there's a lot of social media chatter. And, sometimes it takes a kernel of truth, and it's like the telephone game. By the time it goes around several times, we're putting a highway through Central Square, or whatever the case may be. So I think trying to get accurate information out to people in a methodical and systematic way is what we can do. But boy, we struggle to try to figure out how to broadcast that information effectively. We do.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, Councilor
Through you
McKinnon.
to the town manager. It's not really a question, it's more of a suggestion. I was driving around today on Winter Street. I saw the signs, which is good for the people that don't have technology. But at the same time, do those people know, hey, you should run your cold water for at least 10 minutes to clear out the system so all your sediment doesn't go into your hot water? Maybe that's something you and a zoo look into, putting notes on people's streets. Because I saw them on Winter Street, but who knows, Conan Street, I didn't see any signs there. So all those people could have been just adding all this stuff into their hot water tank. And if it sits in your hot water tank, your hot water, the bottom rots out and then it explodes and then your basement's flooded.
Yeah.
And
No, that's
that's just
a
a
very good point.
suggestion
Yeah.
to
No, thank
gain
you.
trust.
That's a great
Something to look into.
idea. And it's simple.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe just one additional sort of comment on this. This has been a hot topic for as long as I've been on the council. And I see the town continuously trying to find the right way to message. You mentioned the videos. I think we've sent mailers. We've done a lot of different things. What I noticed is over time, the same questions are coming back, and I'm trying to point people to the resources that already exist. And I actually can't find them. Like I couldn't find the videos. Some of the FAQs we've done, unless you were sort of looking at that mailer at that time, you might not see it. So a suggestion might even be just to collect the things we've already done and just put it on a page, maybe on our website. That's just, learn about our water, something like that. Because we do have some real, we spent a lot of time in a lot of different ways trying to communicate this. And I think it would be good to just make all that stuff continuously available instead of point in time
One
available.
page. Yeah,
Yeah.
one place. Good.
One more,
Thanks. Should we move on to the supplies? Oh, sorry. Yep, Counselor Lindy.
one more low-tech way. The public library. Have copies of things at the public library for the people that don't use the technology, don't use Facebook, even if it's on a DVD or any of the written materials. I mean, when I go looking for stuff, I'm still old fashioned. I like printed stuff and some video. And maybe we'll make you a TikTok star next.
Nope.
People look for things in shorter form now,
They do,
especially
actually.
younger people.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think I had mentioned to the council a while back, I was at a conference a year ago, 2 years ago probably, and that was, here comes TikTok, you better get used to it. So,
Mhm.
so it's not a terrible dancer.
All right. Should we move on to the supply side?
On the supply side, yes. So on tonight's agenda, you'll see two loan orders. This is the first of probably a succession of improvements to the existing system that we have. And it's certainly not uncommon that wells, well, it's absolutely common that wells go through a lifespan and need to be replaced. So that is the case with wells 9 and 5. One of them is in the High Street well field. One of them is in the Carver's Pond well field. So I estimated the other day, we lose about 64,000 gallons a day from well 9, which is in the High Street well field, and a little less than that from well 5. But we are permitted for a certain amount in both those wells. We want to make sure both those wells can produce right up to what's permitted from them. So if we're losing about 30% of the flow from those two wells, that's a big impact to our daily demand for water. So it's something that we can get done within a year, something that needs to be done regardless. So that's on your agenda for tonight. We're also, I think I've mentioned before, plowing forward with our engineers and Department of Environmental Protection on the Vernon Street wells. The DEP has actually been very helpful. They've laid out steps for us to take so that we don't have to, essentially, so we can save a little bit of money on retesting and redoing the pump tests on those wells. So that's good news for us. I will say that the conservative timeline brings us to about 2028 on tying in Vernon Street wells. So this is not a quick process. This is a multi-year process. We go through a lot of steps to get there. But again, our engineers are certainly capable of doing this, and DEP has been very willing to, they know what we've been through with our water issues. And no, a lot of towns, they know what a lot of towns have been through. But they've also been very tuned into these wells since they did pump tests about 10 years ago, roughly 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I guess. So that is, that's on the supply side. So we're got our ducks in a row there, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Do we have any questions? Councilor McKinnon?
Through you to the town manager. Just want to thank you for that, especially the Vernon Street wells. I've been kind of on you since I've been here about those. And I just want to request on the next town manager update, an update on the mobile gas station, the old mobile gas station. And that'll be it. Thank you.
So, do we have any additional questions? Could you just describe where on Vernon Street the wells are? That question is,
On Vernon?
yeah. Or maybe we could post on the town website. Yeah. 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 So I think that would be just helpful information.
I'll find
think
out.
we've described it.
I
Yeah, I think
forget
it is tucked
exactly
away,
where they
but
are
yeah.
on the street, but I can find out.
Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. Before we close out this agenda item, do any of the counselors have items for the next agenda for the town manager's update? Okay. All right, if we do, we can provide them before. Thank you. We can close this one out and move along to item J, discussions. We're welcoming Town Clerk Marilee Hunt to the podium to talk to us about the April election.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is 2 meetings in a row I've been here. You're gonna have to put a ban on me pretty soon. Marilyn Kenny Hunt, Austin Street, speaking as your town clerk and a proud citizen of Bridgewater. After last year's annual election, I was criticized on Facebook for the low turnout of voters. I did not then, and I do not now accept that blame. However, low voter turnout saddens me greatly, and it's difficult for our office. We put a lot of effort into elections and would like a big turnout at elections. As both your town clerk and a citizen who ran for elections 6 times, I see a positive benefit to competition for voter turnout. I would sincerely like to see the return of an engaged electorate in Bridgewater. When only one person runs for a position, or when no one runs for a position, it can be filled only by a write-in candidate, and that is not a race. It is not healthy for the community, and it should be extremely rare. And I want to take a second and step back from my notes here and say I am not casting blame or aspersions at anyone who sits on this council. If you got here by a write-in, you got here by someone not running against you, that is definitely not your fault. You are here and you are sitting at this table and you put your name out there, and I respect and honor that. So that's not what I'm talking about in here. I don't want anybody to take this personally. I've discussed various options to increase voter turnout with my staff and others, including the Board of Registrars of Voters. And I'm here to present an option that most have endorsed and consider practical, and hopefully it will be effective. Some of you may remember, as I do, but many of you are much younger than me, so maybe you don't remember, that when the select board went from 3 members to 5, we had an election where 13 people, I was one of them, ran for 3 open seats. 13 people ran for 3 open seats. That's quite different than what we've been seeing lately. The town buzzed with talk, and candidate signs were all over the place. We debated, we campaigned, we went door to door talking to constituents who had questions and concerns. The town was, in one word, engaged. Bridgewater became a sign city. I recall complaints that the lawns were growing campaign signs. That was like a big quote in the paper. We're growing campaign signs in Bridgewater. I also remember a large turnout on election day. If Dennis were here, he'd tell you he remembers a sunburn too. When signs are not growing in yards, when debates and candidates forums are not happening, when candidates do not need to engage their neighbors or their fellow residents for signatures on their nomination papers, while explaining at the same time why they are the best person for the job, voters then neither know the candidates nor their positions. When only one person runs for an open position, there is no purpose in residents taking time to come to the polls. They already know who's going to win. That has become a routine in Bridgewater and has engendered low voter turnout and our sadly equally low community engagement. The town has become apathetic, and following close on the heels of apathy is total disengagement. My suggestion to attempt a cure, I'm asking all elected officials and members of the Board of Registrars to each take 10 signs and place them prominently in their precincts, districts, or neighborhoods. There will be signs announcing the election only, not candidate signs. Thus, I'm asking you, our elected town council, to fund the purchase of 250 annual town election signs to be distributed 10 per person to all elected officials, with 30 remaining signs for distribution to be kept in my office for the first 30 citizens who ask to take them. They are simple reminders to vote, which will look something like this. Can you see it? Very simple, just vote next Saturday. A price quote from Bridgewater Print and Copy shows that a cost for 250 24-inch by 19-inch corrugated, two-sided, three-color printed signs and 250 metal stakes will cost $2,900. The distribution plan includes elected officials picking up the signs from my office 2 weeks before the election, citizens picking up the signs when they're there and ready to be distributed. The first 30 who come get a sign. Elected officials and the Board of Registrars of Voters placing the signs in the most prominent locations in their precincts and districts on the afternoon or evening of the Saturday before the election or the Sunday before the election. Just so they're not up more than a week before, because you don't want to confuse. It's only going to say vote on Saturday. It's not going to have a date because we want them to be used for many years. The elected officials will then take down the signs that they have planted on the Sunday or a few days after the election and store them at their houses for the next year's use. If the official has lost the election or otherwise is not serving the next year, they give the signs to the person taking their place. Citizen signs may be kept by the citizen if they plan to put them up again the next year, or they return them to the town clerk's office or the highway department if they aren't going to put them up another time. So I ask for your support for this project for the betterment of Bridgewater, the re-engagement of Bridgewater citizens with their town government, and a return to an active, invigorating voting process. I'm here to answer questions, listen to concerns, hear obstacles that I may not have anticipated. And I'm excited to hear your thoughts, and I will do best to answer any of your questions. That's what I've got to say.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
Yes.
The town clerk, Counselor Lindy.
I think that's a wonderful suggestion and idea. I'm all in. I do have one question, though.
Okay.
I'm a union person. I know Bridgewater Print and Copy is here in town. They're not a union shop. I would like to at least explore the possibility. I know that will increase the cost, but there are sources in the local area that do union. But I would feel much more comfortable buying signs that I have to pay for if they're from a union shop. So I just want to put that out there.
I understand that. I definitely will check it out. I'm also balancing the thought between supporting a Bridgewater business and going with a union shop. And so I would prefer to leave that decision to the funders of the project. You guys. I'm happy to look for the prices and find those for you and get the numbers for you. Absolutely.
And I can help you with that because I
Okay.
know of 2 local shops.
Okay, sure.
Do we have any additional questions from the town clerk?
Actually,
Yeah, Counselor George.
thank you through you to the town clerk. So I'm all for increased engagement. The sign idea, I think is great. The only concern I have, and I want the signs to be able to be reused over and over again, which makes all the sense in the world. I don't know if putting them up on the Sunday before the election is enough time to give people the exposure. I don't know how getting around trying to put the actual date on it so that you can put it out a little bit earlier, but then in the next election, obviously the date's going to change, something like that. I don't necessarily think it's a question. I just think there's some workaround. I know some candidates will actually buy stickers and they'll put the sticker on the top and then after the election, they just peel the sticker off. So
Done that.
just something to consider. I mean, if you can't do that, I still would do it. I'm just saying a little less than a week notice, quote unquote, even though it'll be out there in other avenues. If we could figure that out, that'd be great. But the signs,
I
think the
agree.
signs are perfect. So.
I agree. It's a good point. The other thing to consider in all this, we're talking about only the annual town election. We're not talking about any other elections because there'll be a lot of signs for state and
Yeah,
federal
the state and
elections.
the national ones, we don't have to. worry
Right.
about.
But what happens with the town election, the way it's set for the Saturday before the last Monday
Yeah.
in April is it's almost always vacation week. Almost always vacation week. And so people are coming back from spring break with their kids. They've got dirty laundry. They have to do shopping. It's also very often the day that the sports fields open. So everybody is concentrating on getting their kids to sports. So I'm not 100% sure. I think the difference is going to be that short period of time when people have just gotten in town and all of a sudden they're going to the grocery store, they're going to the fields, or they're going to the laundromat, or they're doing whatever they're doing. And they see a sign that says, oh, wow, that's today. You know, they're voting today. I do encourage people always to go to the sports fields and campaign there. They hold signs all around and to hold signs downtown. So I've tried to deal with that because I do want the signs to last. And I don't want to peel the paint off of them as we tear stickers on and off, or maybe if we layer stickers on top of each
I
other.
understand. And I guess my point too, to supplement what you're saying is if people are going to be away, or if they're just coming back, you give them a little bit more of an advance notice, hopefully to take advantage of absentee ballots and be
Yes,
able to go in that direction. So, but again, you know, we'll do our best effort. There'll be people that you're not going to satisfy, but I think it's definitely worth the effort.
yeah. I'm really happy to hear suggestions about if we want to put them up a couple weeks earlier or something like that. I just couldn't figure out what to do with the date.
Yeah.
When I was trying to figure it out, I really couldn't figure out how to do that without damaging the signs or having something that was a lot more expensive that had a sliding in date or something like
Are
that.
you going to do both sides of the sign or just one?
Both sides.
Both sides?
Both sides of the sign. Yeah. Certainly, if you have other suggestions, I want to hear them.
I have to think about that one.
Yes.
Thanks. Counselor Murphy?
Yeah, Mary, thank you for coming with the suggestion. I think that's great to, brainstorm solutions and have solutions that we can all participate in. I also think that it's our responsibility to also support this effort as elected town officials. I will say that I think we often talk about communication, and everything we do here comes back to communication, how we communicate. And I think that's always an area that we're trying to improve, or always an area that we've identified that we're lacking in. I think one thing we don't do well as a town is communicate in ways that are innovative and creative and appeal to people. I think, signage and newspapers are great avenues that are longstanding traditions, but aren't often used anymore or don't appeal to a generation that we're struggling to appeal to. And so I think we all, and again, I don't think this is just a town clerk thing, although obviously elections live in that area. But we all need to be more creative with how we're communicating this information, because our generations today just aren't digging for that information. They want it quick, they want it fast, they want it in front of them. And I think we need to start really focusing our communications in that area as well too, because we do the traditional sense. We do follow that and do that really well, but we don't do the creative piece really well. And if we can't do that, then we're never going to attract new voters or young voters. And so I think that's something, again, I don't think that's just a town clerk issue. I think that's something as elected officials, we can all do a little bit better.
Right. I agree.
Thank you, Counselor Murphy. Do we have any other? Yep. Counselor Robinson?
Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually going to throw out a suggestion. Sorry, let me back up. First, I do think it's a great idea. I think our voter base is quite varied, but I also do agree there's a lot of folks that we probably aren't reaching. We've got 18,000 registered voters or something like that.
18,633. Yeah.
So I was close. So I like the sign idea, and I'm absolutely willing to support it. I was wondering, we already have the ability to for people to sign up for text messages for meeting notifications. Could we potentially create a channel just for election information? Things like ballot information, register to vote, all the things, so that it's like they're not going to be getting, every single meeting that's coming up. It's a very different thing. So is that something that could be potentially explored? And then what was my other
We have
thing?
a page, we do have a page just for elections on the town website. And we post things there the whole time of the election, but that isn't like putting it straight out to people's computers. They have to be looking for, they have to
Right.
look for that.
Yeah. But I mean, and I realize it's an opt-in thing, but that's something that maybe we could help promote, where if people are getting text messages, like I like text messages and I'm not even that young, but that is a way that I prefer to get some communications. So anyway, just throwing that out there as a suggestion. And then also, I don't want to turn this into a whole creative session, but if you're open to it, I would love to give some feedback on the actual sign to really make sure it's
Sure.
as impactful as possible.
Sure, that was just a quick,
Yeah.
like throw it up to get it to the printers to get some sort of cost estimate or
Yeah.
something like that to have an idea. So absolutely,
All right. Thanks so much.
sure.
Thanks, Counselor Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President, and really thank you for your presentation tonight. And I do want to just point out I know the Massachusetts presidential primary in the spring will be on March 5th. I've just checked the date of
Yes.
that. So I'm not sure what your experience might be, what your recollection is as to years where in a presidential primary election, our town election in April follows just weeks later. I guess I'm wondering whether it can potentially become a matter of election fatigue and people forget about it because of the election. That was last month sometime.
Mhm.
Or is it actually going to help to spark more interest? Do you have any sense of that?
So trying to think of a politically kind way to say all of this. The state and federal, well, they're all state elections, but when we're doing federal things in the state election, those are all on TV. They're all out there every place so that everybody's seeing that. And people are quite involved in that. And my personal opinion is that the most important level of government for people to be involved in is their municipal government. Not just because I'm involved in it, but because I think it is the most important thing that you can do. And that is how most people feel. Most people feel that it's the national election for the president or the governor or the state one for the governor. So those get a lot of attention and people see those and they go to vote. And then they don't think it's important to vote for the town election. Like, why does this affect me? I mean, I don't think they're thinking when they do that, but I think that's the mode. And this isn't something that's so important that we have to do. And so maybe it's fatigue. Maybe it's just lack of engagement. I mean, that's how I feel. I'm an old person. We thought all the elections were important. We thought the local ones were important too. And now it seems all the attention goes to the big elections, which I think are less impactful to the citizens of Bridgewater than their town election. So I don't know, Fred, if that answers, or Counselor Chase, if that answers your questions. But I do think it's a conundrum. And I said this before, and I don't mean to sound judgmental, but lowering the number of signatures that counselors have to get to be able to run for your office wasn't helpful in trying to keep the community engaged. And I know it's a pain in the neck. I have been there. I've run in 6 elections, one of them for a state representative election where I had to have oodles of signatures. And going to those doors, it's a pain in the neck, and knocking on everybody's doors and having to tell them time and time again what you believe. But that is how you inform the electorate. That is how they know who you are. And that's how they compare you to the other people who are running, and having debates and forums that are on YouTube so you can go back and look at them so that people can see what you say and how you say it and what you're going to do. Those are important things, and we don't see that. We don't see that for our local elections. So I'm just trying to make it visible, trying to get it out there so that people stop to think. This is the most important person you can vote for. You're going to see him out mowing his yard. You can stop him and talk to him, and you stop him in the grocery store and CVS. You guys don't like that, but that's important for community engagement. So, thanks.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
Counselor
the
Perry?
national Signage is a very good idea.
Thanks.
So
Great.
Thanks.
thank you for that.
We'll keep working
Thank
on it. You come up with the money. We'll keep working on it.
Counselor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, Marilee, thank you for the ideas. Again, every little bit helps. The signage helps. Potentially a system to get text messages out there will help. But ultimately, I don't think we're going to see the people come out to vote unless they're contested races. You know, ultimately, it's got to be, who am I voting for? Somebody versus somebody. A single person running for a particular seat is not going to be bringing people out to the polls. So that just gets to, again, we need to get more communities, so, you know, people involved in town politics and town government, people that want to get involved and help to run the town. Until we get that, this was my concern, you know, going back to our last meeting, talking about, you know, elected, you know, town clerk. Unless we get 2 or 3 people, 4 people want to put their hat in the mix for the seat, there's not going to be a lot of people coming out to, you know, to cast a vote. So I just urge the public to hear this message, get involved, talk to somebody about information on how to get involved, get your name on a ballot, and hopefully we can have some contested races that will eventually bring the people on out to make a vote, because without it, then people aren't going to come.
I agree completely. And I would say just this morning, I met with the Board of Registrars of Voters, and we are going to, on November 4th, we think, we haven't got this all because we just talked about it this morning, have a potential candidates thing out at the senior center, where we will have some people come to talk to us from all the elected positions, school committee, town council, library trustees, town clerk. There's only one of them to go talk. And we'll talk to them about what you have to do to get your nomination papers, what it's like to get the job, if you get the job, what it's like to run a campaign, and try to do all of that in November, try and get people excited about perhaps running or not afraid to run, starting in January when we put papers out, and hope that we can get some candidates, because that's what we need.
Just maybe a final thought. So it's interesting. I probably have a different opinion on this. I love the idea of the signs. I fully support that. I would probably debate the idea that there's a lack of engagement, because I think if you look around our town and you go down to the baseball fields on a weekend, or the soccer fields, or the football fields, or the robot program, or the cleanup day, or the town, I can walk anywhere in this town and I see our community engaged. So the things that they really care about, they are showing up for. And I think the struggle for us is, how do we find airtime in an environment that has changed significantly from the days when 13 people would show up because that was the town news. That was the only thing in town. And it directly impacted the baseball fields. And it's distributed now. And we're competing with Facebook and the news of the day and all these different messages. And we don't have the funds to pay for the eyeballs to kind of get higher up in the priority list. So I think for me, it's actually not an engagement issue. I think people are engaged, and the things they care about, they will show up for. And they demonstrate that every day across the town. I think the tricky thing is, how do we as a council find new ways and different ways to make this something that they care about, right? And it's a struggle. And I think awareness of voting is good, but I don't think we can equate that to caring about voting. So even if people know there's a vote, is there something in there that I care about? And will me showing up to vote affect the outcome? Like we need to help connect people to that. So I think as we're brainstorming solutions, if we brainstorm ways to just connect people to the parts of our community that aren't covered in these volunteer areas, and try to help them care about it, I think that's another kind of way that we explore this. But I appreciate, all the work you're doing. I think this is a critical step. But I think to the earlier comments, it's one of 100 that we need to figure out.
And remember, it's not just the council, it's the school committee, the library, the town clerk as well,
Yep.
that all need to be elected. So
Yep.
that's
And then I think we also need to figure out what good looks like. I think
what looks like it.
what good looks like.
Yes.
If I think we just need to kind of think that through. So good. Thank you, though. We have one final comment from Mr. Lindy.
Yes, kind of piggybacking on what both Council Murphy and Council Robinson said about newer technology and younger folks, okay? Stonehill College, where I teach, one of the students was brilliant for an election at the school. They didn't see a lot of turnout for, he's the treasurer and has to present before the Board of Trustees. They created an app for that election. and engaged a whole heck of a lot of people. It's just a, further of the text message. And I know not the senior citizens are going to do that. I still like signs and newspapers, but I'm old school. But I think that kind of technology, and I think the biggest problem, just moving here a couple of years ago, is the actual date of the election. I think it's a horrible date to have an election at the end of a school vacation. I know that's a charter change and a whole bunch of stuff, but it doesn't make any sense to me. And in the year that I don't know if we had more turnout the year of COVID when we voted in June. I don't know the numbers for that.
I can go back and look.
But, down the road, we got to explore that. But I'll be glad to work with you in any way to get the message out.
Thanks. Thanks for all your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. And maybe just a clarifying point by me, I think the technology isn't to me a generation communication. I think it is an avenue of communication that some people prefer and some don't. So I think we need to really just sort of figure out all of the different ways we can communicate and the best ones to create passion. So, great. I think we are ready then to move on to committee reports. We have none. I'm going to move ahead then to agenda item L, legislation for action. We have one order this evening, order 0 FY 24-009, transfer order, contractual buyouts. Budget and Finance voted 3-0 to recommend at their 9/5/23 meeting, and the Finance Committee voted 3-0 to recommend at their 9/18/23 meeting. I'll defer to the town manager for an overview.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is what I referred to as employee sick buyback. We actually call it the Employee Liability Fund. And it's covering 6 retirements or departures, and it amounts to $271,585 spread among those 6.
Mr. President, point of clarification. You said the Finance Committee voted 3-0?
Oh, sorry, 5-0.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Do we have any questions for the town manager? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we can move to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion passes. Moving on to agenda item M, old business, we have none. Agenda item N, new business. We have 3 items this evening. The first is agenda item A, resolution R FY 24-002, First Responders Day. I would actually defer to Councilor McKinnon to discuss this.
This is just going off the proclamation we did earlier in April on the 29th, how we made it First Responder Day in town for the event. This is just to kind of keep this going on. Yeah, it's national, they have the date, but locally, it's always good to show people that you care too, that do a lot for you. So it's just really what this is about. I don't have it in front of me or else I'd read it, but
Okay, yeah, no worries. So I would entertain a motion to approve for discussion.
So moved.
second.
We have a motion, a second. Is there any discussion on this one?
Just
Councilor
recommend that we probably keep it at the council level and bring it at next meeting.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Any additional discussion? Councilor Robinson?
I know Counselor McKinnon had mentioned this, but, just did want to apprise everybody, if you weren't aware, there is a National First Responders Day, October 28th, that's been observed for a number of years. So I think it's probably just a recommendation in thinking about how we messaged, how this is different to the community versus the national one. I don't think it takes a lot, but just want to point out that distinction. Thanks.
Okay, and actually just referring to the correction that Councilor Perry provided. I'd earlier said and entertain a motion to approve. This is new business, so we can't approve. So tonight I would actually entertain a motion to retain at council.
And I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, we can move ahead with a voice vote. All those in favor of retaining at the council, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
Motion to discuss.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Oh, so I
That's
did
okay.
do it right. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. It is getting, all right, we're moving on to item B, Order OFY 24-010, loan authorization, water well number 5 replacement. The town manager gave us a quick overview of this earlier. Is there anything additional that you'd like to provide on this?
No, other than this loan authorization and the next order loan authorization are essentially exactly the same. One is for well 5 at Carver's and one is for well 9 at High Street.
Thank you. On this, I would entertain a motion to refer to Budget and Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we can move to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Item C, order OFY 23-011, loan authorization, water well number 9 replacement. Defer to the town manager. Is there anything additional you'd like to add on this one?
Nothing additional.
All right, thank you. I would entertain a motion to refer to Budget and Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we can move to a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on to item O, citizen comment. Would anyone from the public like to speak? All right, yep, please.
Good evening, Carlton Hunt, Austin Street. As you were talking about some of the issues tonight, I realized that one of the communication tools we have is our webpage. It may be the worst webpage in the state of Massachusetts. You can't find anything using the search function. I've tried to even find the charter. It turns all sorts of stuff up, but not the charter, not the admin code. If you want to know where meetings are, the calendar is buried at the bottom of the page. And if you brought that up, so that's the first thing you saw up on the page, people would say, oh, there's a town council meeting 2 weeks, 2 days, 4 days. There's a historic commission meeting. There's a CPA meeting. So people would see that and they can click on that and get to. The town manager has a wonderful video that he puts out about the state of the town. Where is it? It's buried in his page. It's not up on the top. So my suggestion for one of the communication things around elections and any of the other things we can think of, actually get someone in here, a company, somebody who can get that page to match what some of the towns around here have. Because I can click on those and find whatever I want at the click of a button. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak, please?
Al Lacerda, Comfort Street. I just wanted to say, as president of a nonprofit organization that's been working on the Spring Street Park over there, I believe what we call it legislation, is that what it is, that you guys just pushed forward for First Responder Day? Having spent 14 years of my life either as a combat Marine or in a first responder role, I can tell you that national days of recognition are important. They mean a lot to people, and it's a great opportunity to kind of celebrate the roles that people play within on a national scale. However, in a local community, especially one like Bridgewater, where the people serve their local communities, they go out every single day. It's important that I think that people feel like they're recognized within their own local community, that they sacrifice so much for in the service of everybody here. So that's why I felt like that was a really nice thing to put forward, that Councilor McKinnon put forward. And we look forward to having that go through so that we can celebrate on a yearly basis all of those people and show them the appreciation that they deserve. And hopefully that will start to catch on, and we can use those types of things to move the town forward, bring the community together a little bit more, get people coming out and starting to engage with each other again, get everybody out of their COVID corners and back out and forming relationships with each other again. And that is the whole purpose of what we're trying to do over on Spring Street. And that is the whole purpose of having these kinds of events. So I appreciate all of you. There's been a lot of positive things coming out of the council. I have been watching, and I feel like it's really moving the town in a very good direction. And that's very encouraging. And I'm pleased to see that. And hopefully I can help in a little way to move those things forward along with you. So I appreciate that. And I want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to council comments, starting with Councillor Murphy.
No further comments tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lindy.
Okay, first of all, I was lucky enough to attend the ribbon cutting at the McElwain School today. And I just wanted to commend two people that are in this room, our council president for very personal remarks about him attending the school, and just, I sent him a text. I thought he did a great job. And our town manager. It's such a quality project. I've been dying to get inside. Two of my former neighbors from Michael's Landing live there. They're on the second floor. I got to view there's like a 3-bedroom apartment on the third floor that was like an open house. It had a chalkboard in one of the bedrooms, an original chalkboard. Very well done. Ceiling heights, tall ceiling heights, very light and airy. And then I went into I didn't see as much in the new structure, except the community room is absolutely gorgeous. And I hope people will take advantage. I'm going to have a constituent. I'm not doing coffee with the council because I'm not going to copy Dennis, but I want to do an event there in that room. It's a big room. It's really nice. They have a fitness center over there for the residents. They just did such a quality job. I know Jason Korb, he did a project in Brockton that was outstanding. And the two partners that did it and all the people, we had the secretary of, what's the new agency?
Housing and livable communities.
Housing and livable communities come down. It was just a true partnership, and it's a beautiful restoration. And there was a whole lot of talk about the shoe out front, which is a whole nother story that I need to know more about. But I also wanted to thank Al, who came here and presented, and for Councilor McKinnon for sponsoring that, because I think anything we can do for first responders, EMS, fire, police would be great. And I'll support that 110%. And just a lot of positive things are happening in Bridgewater. And I want to thank our town clerk for, wanting to promote elections better and getting more people involved. So thank you.
Councillor Chase.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly, I was pleased to attend together with Councilor Lindy and Councilor Robinson the recent Metro South Chamber of Commerce Day, which very prominently featured Bridgewater, and in particular, of course, our attention, our focus on downtown revitalization. And as I naturally would have expected, Bob Rulli, and Mr. Dutton did present just a very insightful observations about the status and the promise of that project going forward. And it was very well attended. It was a packed house at the golf club, and I think it was very well received. And I think that so many people benefited from it who might otherwise not, perhaps many of them not being Bridgewater residents, may not have been very familiar with the concept and what we're hoping to achieve in Bridgewater. But I think it was absolutely well received, and hats off to everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chase. Councillor McKinnon.
No comments from me. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Probably just a quick thank you, Tal, from the foundation. Thanks for being here. And I unfortunately have only attended one event, but it was pretty phenomenal. And actually had the opportunity to meet the CEO of Mr. Seals that day as well. So that was a really great afternoon. I do just want to clarify as well, my mention about the National Day was not to put any kind of position or opinion otherwise. It was just truly just as an FYI, because I just want to let you all know that it was recognized. I too will be supporting that as well. I think it's definitely important to recognize folks in our community. So with that, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor George.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councillor Perry.
Okay, again, echoing all the sentiments that were said earlier. Unfortunately, all these other events that have been coming up that council's been able to go to, I've been working, so I'm very disappointed I wasn't able to attend those events. But I would recommend to the public, I believe it's a public event, the event of next week on the 26th is another review by Bob Ruley about community development, 6:30 at the Mitchell School, I do believe. So I encourage people to come on out. I see banter on social media, questions about it. So if you do have questions, come to this event. This is where you're going to hear the information. And also just a reminder, as probably everybody knows, not this weekend, but the following weekend is Autumn Fest in town. So it's going to be a big event, as it always usually is. So hopefully the weather's good and everyone can enjoy a wonderful event. Outside of that, that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So I will take us home. Maybe 3 quick notes. I appreciated the comments about the webpage. I also hate our website. And I can say that there are active conversations, mostly trying to connect with the vendor, the company that we buy our website software from, to understand how we get past some of the limitations that all of us have raised. And so I expect we'll see both conversation and progress there. The other thing about participation, we did get some suggestions from the public about finding a way for people to attend these meetings virtually. So for those people that are interested in participating, if you ever kind of follow activity on Facebook while we're streaming, there are people, I think, that for a variety of reasons cannot get here at this time, but do care about the town and want to participate. And so, in an upcoming meeting or maybe a discussion, maybe we kick back around the idea of virtual meetings and participation and how that might work. And then lastly, I also wanted to touch on McElwain. So I've been to a lot of events where, kind of a lot of people sort of get up and talk about something that they've accomplished. This one was special. I felt like I was surrounded by a whole bunch of people that just believed in Bridgewater. And yes, there are financial incentives, and yes, there's kind of a whole sort of business angle to it. But the people in the room and the people that were talking were there because they truly care about our town and they believe that we're doing something special. And so I also encourage people to just go walk around that property, look at the shoe, and just sort of look at just how much sort of individual time and personality went into that piece of art. For a project like that, that is an extra investment that you might not expect. But I think it's also the prime example of people starting to believe in what we're doing. And those believers are the people that are going to get us to the outcome that we're talking about with the downtown, with the roads, with the water. So I was just really, motivated and excited by the fact that the group of believers is growing and taking action. So it was great to see. I think with that, we'll close out council comments. We have no executive session this evening, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and a third, apparently. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.